if you don't love football, you really can't be here. That's something that Javon Bullard said the other day. Last week, we got to hear from a handful of the players, and I thought that the interviews were pretty fruitful this time around. From when you get to talking to the same people every week, sometimes you don't learn much new. But we haven't seen them in a while, and Javon Bullard had a ton to say. A ton. If you don't love football, you really can't be here. He said, "You really can't be around me." That's another thing that he said, kind of right after, almost correcting himself. But Bullard, he is a player who is going to become a fan favorite for the Georgia fans if he hasn't already, right? And because some of that's because of what he did last year. But when you get to hear from some of these players, you can tell who's going to be the fan favorite, who are some of the quieter ones. Javon Bullard, very meticulous in what he had to say, but he was straight up. You can't be a Georgia if you don't love football, and I think that's true. And you can tell from top to bottom that the program loves football and they are committed to winning football games. You can just tell. I get to be at these practices sometimes. I tell you what, they love football, right? I look. I don't think that you do that every day. Wake up, go through that, have like to the detail that they do it in Athens, right? Obviously, other programs, other teams, other sports. You wake up and you do that every day and it's a daily grind. But this Georgia football program, I'm telling you, it's a different grind. Getting to see some of it, getting to talk to people that are a part of it, knowing people that are a part of it, it is a different grind being a Georgia Bulldog. And it's, only players and coaches that have been in more than one program can do direct comparisons. But I think it says a lot when all these players talk about how the games are easier compared to the practices, right? That Georgia's practices are tougher than the games. That they wake up and they do that every single day. And Bullard is a guy who was a 3-star prospect from Milledgeville, Georgia. This is not some bona fide stud in the defensive back room like some of his counterparts, aka Malachi Starks, right? That he's going to be partner in crime with this year. Him and Malachi come from different backgrounds. Malachi Starks is a bona fide 5-star stud, and Javon Bullard, a 3-star who got a turn pretty early on, right? Fought in camp last year. There are open defensive back spots. Javon Bullard goes and takes one. There are a lot of young defensive backs on the roster last year. Javon Bullard goes and takes one of those spots, and he was Georgia's star for the most part. I think you're going to see him move around a little bit, and that's something he talked about. I'm going to share as well. But Bullard, they if you don't love football, you really can't be here. That's all you got to boil it down to. Ryan Curley from Dog Post talking about the Georgia Bulldogs, talking about Javon Bullard and what he had to say last week. Make sure, real quick, newsletter. Link is down below. I've got it in the description. It's free to sign up for our newsletter. It goes out every single, early afternoonish. It's not the exact same time every day, but you'll get a newsletter in your inbox every single day with all of the latest stories about Georgia Bulldogs and college football. We can't say every single word on here, right? So got to put some on the website. Had to plug that. Link is below for the newsletter. It's free. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to give us any money. It is free, right? That's my biggest selling point. Bullard, let's listen to, this is a little bit of his just mentality, right? So I'm playing primarily safety. This is what he said. Because, he's a guy that kind of plays that slot corner role, that star role, whatever you want to categorize that as. That was where he mainly was. But this is what he said, because he's versatile, and I think he's going to play safety mostly this year. Here's what he said. It's really all on the plans of the coaching staff. I play whatever position they put me at. That's my love for the game, and I embrace it. We pride ourselves on versatility. We come in here, and you don't just think that you're playing one position. The more versatile you are, the more value you're adding to yourself. I take pride in that, learning more positions. I would try to learn linebacker if I could. Really just embracing that and taking on that role. It's not about you. It's about the team. So whatever the team needs at that moment, at that game, I feel free to step in wherever I see. Javon Bullard felt free to step in against Tennessee when he had those sacks and the pouring rain and the stadium was really loud towards the end of the third quarter, into the fourth quarter. I believe he was the one who tipped the interception that went into Smileman's hands against LSU. Let's talk about that major hit that he had on Marvin Harrison Jr. That legal hit that changed the ball game. That was a play that could have been a touchdown, and he prevented that from happening. Obviously, what happened to Marvin Harrison Jr. is unfortunate, but moving on. And Bullard talked about it a little bit. Talked about how he doesn't think about that anymore, and I would say that's the way to go about these things is to move forward. And he was for sure a big part of the national championship, being a part of 3 different turnovers, 2 picks on his own, a fumble recovery. I got a text from someone in the middle of the game, just simply, Javon Bullard is a menace. That was a text. The moment I saw that, I tweeted that. He is a guy that is an example of why this program is great. I think that Javon Bullard is a perfect example. Because those stars and all of that kind of goes out the window when you enter the doors of a major college football program, right? At least for the most part. And if they're doing it right, those stars kind of go out the window. And those stars go out the window, Javon Bullard steps in, and he shows immediately that he's a dog, right? And that's not just a figure of speech because he plays for Georgia, but this guy is a dog. He's one of the harder hitting safeties, just the safeties that plays, kind of like a free spirit. He said one of the guys that he's always looked up to is Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, obviously in the NFL, former LSU, one of the more popular defensive backs in college football of the last 15 years, right? And he does have a similar play style. He flies around. He's not huge. He can make a hard hit. He's got good ball skills. Bullard showed he's an all-around defensive back this past season, and he's going to be asked to lead. And he's been a part of 2 national championships, but I think you have to love football to play at Georgia. It's funny, sometimes I don't realize how not everyone loves football and sports in general, right? Because my life is encompassed around that too. But man, I was at the doctor today, and they were just asking me a little bit about my job, so I'm talking about it. And you don't realize how, wow, we're just not built the same. I care so much about that. You care so much about something else, and if you don't just love it, I think that it's hard to be at a program. It's hard to win. I think it's hard to win if you don't love it and really want to win. And that is what has defined Georgia the last few years, is wanting to succeed and doing the things that it takes to succeed. I was telling my sister the other day, if she wants to win more volleyball games in high school, you're going to have to do all the little things. You want more kills, you want more blocks, you're going to have to do those little things beforehand in practice when you're eating. Georgia prides themselves on being champions, and being a champion means doing it 24/7 and loving it 24/7 and wanting it 24/7. And I think that Javon Bullard definitely embodies that as a Georgia player. Jordan Davis embodied that. Nakobe Dean embodied that. There are tons of Georgia Bulldogs that have embodied that. For these 2020, and obviously on the 2022 Dogs as well, but for these 2023 Dogs, people like Javon Bullard are going to be the leaders. They're going to be the fan favorites, and it's because they don't just say things like this, but they mean it. If you don't love football, you can't really be at Georgia. That's what Bullard said. Link is down below for the newsletter. It's a free sign-up. Thank you for watching. We'll see you at the site.